Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speaking of the Arts. My name is Marie Leclerc, and I'm the East Coast agent at Epstein Fox Performances and your host for today. Today, I'm excited to bring you a conversation with famed singer and one of the newest artists on the EFP roster, Magos Herrera. We discuss Magos joining the roster, her journey as a Mexican artist starting over in the US, some of her various projects, and of course, her beautiful new album. You will also hear clips of the songs Gracias A La Vida and Aire from her album also called Aire. I hope you'll enjoy our conversation. So I'm gonna jump on in. Thank you so much, Magos, for joining us today.
Hello. Hello, Marie. Lovely talking to you, and yes, lovely to have this conversation on music with you.
Yeah, and so for those of you who don't know, Magos is our newest artist on the roster for Epstein Fox Performances. And we could not be more excited because we've had the wonderful opportunity to hear Magos's music, and it's just, on another level. And started off by asking if maybe you can explain a little bit of your background, like where you're from, and kind of how you got into music and performing and all of that.
Sure. Well, I guess I have to say that I'm super excited also to be part of of this agency. I'm very excited, and and I guess I would say, I mean, I think music it's something that came to me more than like it was kind of like a call because I don't. I mean, I grew up in a musical family in the sense that my parents always, promoted the appreciation of arts in all its forms. Um, but there is not, no reference to be a musician to make a living as a musician. So I guess, I studied dance for many years, and then when I decided to become, to study professionally music, it wasn't something like really obvious, and so I guess, and then I decided, I grew up in Mexico, and then I just came to study in the States, and then I continued some studies in Mexico. So my life pre New York has been back and forth between Europe, Mexico, and the United States, and and then when I started studying music with Kevin Leto, I remember she was my first teacher, a jazz vocalist back in Los Angeles. She used to sing with Sergio Mendes
Oh,
band.
really?
That was super amazing, and to see her doing her thing, it was really a revelation for me because I mean, of course, I have seen previous live concerts in Europe, like jazz concerts, and I used to hear some jazz singers, but it was when I started to work with her when I actually understood which path I wanted to follow,
Mm-hmm.
um, and and then everything moved from there. Then I went back to Mexico. I lived there for a couple of years. I did a beautiful career there. I had a TV show and released many albums. But then there was always this need to continue growing musically and artistically, and to put myself in uncomfortable, um, situations to grow and to see where I could find a, like an artistic identity. So my husband and I moved to New York 16 years ago or 15 years ago. Um, and definitely it was a breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
It's like before and after in terms of artistic voice and my pursuits as an artist and everything.
And what do you think is like the biggest challenge for someone who's coming from another country as a performer and trying to, you know, kind of, make yourself, you already had this successful career, and then did it feel like you were like completely starting over? Like, what was the biggest challenge for like coming to a new place and trying to find a way to build what you were coming from already? Does that make sense?
Totally, totally. I guess I guess the biggest challenge was to put my ego on a side because I did have already, as you said, a very established career in Mexico, and I had released very successful albums, and I had a TV show, and you know, so when I arrived in New York, it was like starting from scratch and really like you know pay my dues and you know get in line
Uh-huh.
you know in the clubs and getting to know the scene, getting to know the musicians that I love and you know make music with them um, and recording and understand. I guess so. The biggest challenge was to put my ego on aside and really be humble and open to grow and do whatever it took to do so. But after that, I guess also to understand um, how things operate in New York, because I think New York it's something else, like nowhere else. You know, like work culture and how work dynamics um, were so different for me. So it took me kind of like a long period of assimilation as an immigrant, you know, to understand not only nuances of the language, although I have lived in the United States before that in Los Angeles and um, I've been back and forth, but to live in New York, it really takes a different part of your brain to understand the nuances of how it operates, you know, in every sense. So it took me a couple of years of assimilation and also, but that was very important because I think that retreat of trying to observe and understand and also I didn't you know I wasn't 20 years old anymore, so I knew that I needed to be very precise and very efficient in my efforts to achieve whatever goals I had. So I retreat, I observed, I practiced you know um, and then it was very interesting because I guess all this process made me be really honest about what I wanted to do musically and what where my voice belonged
Mhm.
and what does it mean to you know to explore my identity as an artist and my and the relationship of my identity to others.
Mhm.
um, so it's been a beautiful journey, but definitely the biggest challenge, and obviously you know everyone's challenge in New York is you know the incredible competitive
Right.
scene and you know the constant but that's also an advantage because it's you know it's a constant inspiration and
Mhm.
stimulation to keep growing.
Yeah. Well, and how have you felt your music has evolved from that period of time to like the kind of stuff that you're doing now?
I guess I mean I always have had a big influence from Brazilian music like
Mhm.
MPB, um, and and my education as a has been as a jazz singer.
Mhm.
So I have always crossed these two paths somehow. But I guess before New York, the albums that I released in Mexico they were very Latin American oriented in the sense that from the arrangements and the narratives of my songwriting, and
Mhm.
they were very from that time and that place, you know,
Mhm.
the stories about it. So, you know, like very local. I guess when I moved to New York, um, I've been, uh, I think my language, as everyone's languages in New York, became a little bit more universal.
Mhm.
Just, you know, for all the influences that you get, but also because naturally I have performed throughout these years, and I have recorded albums that somehow have guided me into what I was really looking for. You know
Mhm.
about my, you know my artistic voice. So I started recording like very hard. You know like with you know with Lionel Hueque. I'm sorry. I started recording with you know like my first album. I recorded it with Lionel Hueque, Aaron Goldberg. Um, Alex Couch, Ricky Rodriguez, and then in my second album, recorded in New York with John Patitucci, Tim Higgins, Luis Perdomo. So always like this jazz cats that
Uh-huh.
really embraced the sound in a very New York sound.
Yeah.
Um, but it was truly when I recorded the album with Javier Limon, like duo. He's more a producer than a musician, an instrumentalist. Um, but he's incredible, and we toured for 4 years with this duo thing. And I was, I used to play with all these incredible like heavy muscle jazz cats, and all of a sudden it's a voice, it's a guitar, and story.
Mm.
Yeah. So I guess to me that's a big breakthrough because I understand myself as after so many years of being a singer. For the first time, I understood and I saw myself as a singer,
Mm-hmm.
not only as a jazz musician, but like, oh my God, there is so much space, and this, I could see like very detailed the nuances of my voice and how it navigates in certain frequencies. And so the natural consequence of that was my curiosity to record with a string quartet,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and to hear the nuances of my phrasing and the voice and the sound into this kind of timbre, because my
Mm-hmm.
voice somehow it's woody.
Mm.
And that was another big breakthrough because I understood other things of my of the way I frame my music. So, and the natural consequence of that was now, let's explore this now with a larger ensemble. And so my recent album release is, with a trio. With now, what is going to happen with my jazz trio and a chamber
Mm-hmm.
orchestra, and put these two worlds together. And myself navigating, putting some elements of my jazz background, but also storytelling, but also chamber sound into one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's where I'm now.
One thing that, and it was funny, we've been talking about, and we were curious about your singing and your voice, is you have a very unique way of singing that where it's like really like in a lower register and everything. And we were curious if that is that like something that you've kind of developed, or is that how you naturally sing, like how it comes to you?
I think it was developed and discovered and revealed too. Um, I would say it was revealed, but also there is an actual development in it.
Mm-hmm.
I always liked like low register voices and woody timbres, and but naturally when I started singing, my voice was very high. I was a soprano dramatico, so I didn't like it.
Oh.
because because I always had this woody husky thing.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I throughout many years I studied opera and with my teachers and also with jazz singers, but um, I understood that I didn't have, I mean, I understood through yoga and body work, and that really, I mean, uh, vocal production, it has to do with your breath,
Right.
mainly, and how you place your breath, and and the placement of the sound. So I did a very intense, deep uh, work, personal work, in trying to understand how to place the sound in my body technically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also, as time goes by, your voice change and drops, and so there have been many things, but it's been a search really to find the sound that I really wanted,
Mm-hmm.
um, and also just nature and time. But and that's regarding the sound, that like biologically or physically what happens. But
Right.
that in terms of phrasing and how I navigate, and I guess that's something that has been the just the result of so many years singing in so many different contexts and with different musicians that have helped me to approach my voice in a certain way, not only as a jazz instrument but also as a storyteller, but also try to transmit and to share the emotional the emotional content that reflects my background somehow as well. My personal, my native background, but also my emotional background.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. No, that, wow. Okay. I was also struck, like when I've seen you perform live, and it's funny, it's sort of clicking a little bit now that you're saying like that you even were a dancer and everything. Like, as I've noticed when you're singing, even like I've wondered if, like, if maybe you had some of that in your background, because the way that I've noticed that you move, and even like the clothing I've seen you wear, there was like these flowing. I'm wondering if that's what you're kind of, is that like a well that you're dipping back into when you're performing? You're thinking back to, like, as someone who's, a dancer and.
I mean, I don't do it consciously, but probably it reflects. And I really understand, the vocal experience as
Mhm.
a performer as a whole thing, like all my body sings when I perform and everything. Um, yeah, like I need to like I guess my body is a reflection of that constant idea of breathing and how you breathe and when you where you place your breath and
Mhm.
how where do you find the core of the motion and it has a lot of definitely a lot of body work and
Mhm.
emotional deep work. So I don't think about it consciously, but I'm sure I danced for so many years and that I feel of my artistic persona as a manifestation of so many ingredients,
Mhm.
like dancing, body work, yoga, meditation, singing, of course, all my music experience, and but also I study fashion design, so I want to make sure that that also reflects
Mhm.
the seed of what I'm trying to say, like every detail. uh, I like details.
Yeah. I think that's pretty obvious. I think that comes across really well in how you perform and your music itself. Um, I was also curious. So I recently had the pleasure of seeing you perform at the UN, which was really cool. And it just reminded me how many like different projects and things that you've been involved with, and just the things that I've sort of discovered on my own, like looking into your history and everything. Do you think having all these different various projects that you've worked on, that, I mean, I guess it seems like the timing has even sort of overlapped on each other, like, do you think, like, how important do you think it is to like the overall kind of evolution of your own music, that, like, and is it like trying all these different things, like what kind of makes inspires you to do that?
That's a great question. I think it's not a kind of like a preconceived strategy that okay, I'm gonna do this now and then this to pursue my musical growth or I guess I mean I truly believe in the intelligence and the intelligence of life to carry us to wherever we need to go, and if you're really super tuned into that intelligence, whatever comes across, there's a reason for it. Um, so that being said, I embark in projects that I know that I'm gonna, yeah, are gonna shine somehow, that are gonna shine emotionally, or that I can resonate with them, and so I mean mainly my priority always is to create my next album as a leader, and whatever that is, I'll just jump into it and I'll do it. But I'm also very, I try to be honest with my musical pursuits beyond definitions and beyond definitions of all sorts, right? So like I would never conceive a new album considering okay, I'm here in my career and now I need to do this, and like I just really follow my intuition in what my musical intuition wants to travel, and also where um, and obviously using experience, like I know where my voice works fine and what's the kind of stories that I want to tell and what's the kind of narratives that I want to share. And so I just jump into whatever adventure it's gonna grow. It's gonna grow within me and with others. Um, and the collaborations that I do, let's say the collaboration with Brooklyn Writer, I knew I mean, I mean, growing as a jazz singer, I would have never thought about, recording with a string quartet, period. No other, like with no jazzy elements whatsoever, except from the arrangements. Yeah, I just trust my intuition, I try to be fearless when I take a decision in terms of what I'm gonna embark, or with Paola Prestini, which is this adventure that I navigated with, which is the concert that you're talking about at UN headquarters. Paola comes from a completely different genre. She's an incredible new music composer, trained as a classical composer, and um, but we've been, the National Sawdust, this venue that she co-founded. It's been kind of like, it has been kind of like a home for me in New York. Like, gave me a lot of grounding.
Mhm.
And Paola's vision and DNA about, like inclusion, and I really resonate with that. So beyond being good friends. So this adventure that we did together was in the pandemic, and it really, we created this and a response. Not, okay, let's do our next album. It was more like an emotional survival, resilience adventure that we needed to do. Like we need to transcend this moment, and we need to navigate this moment with grace and with love. And how we do it through music. This is what we know. This is what we know. So that was like a very, very, very organic conversation. And then the album is very organic too. It's very different what she writes and what I write, and the arrangements that I choose. And but somehow it works. It works very organically. And so yeah. And yeah, and I just, but as I'm getting older, I'm trying to be a little bit more. I'm creating more space between projects.
So I wonder if we can dig in a little bit more to your new album that's coming out, and sort of how that project in particular came about, and sort of how you would maybe describe it to somebody like who knows absolutely nothing about the project and the music.
Well, I'm very excited about this new project because, as I said, it's like the natural continuation of my previous work. It came about, so during the pandemic, during isolation, I received a grant from Chamber Music Americas to write new music. And um, so I just started writing music from my experiences during isolation. And I guess the one of the most incredible things during isolation for myself, after reflecting on survival and existential questions like all of us, one of the most beautiful experiences was that I really, understood, through touching our vulnerability, I understood the greatness of the little things, the nuances, and the greatness of the things that makes us humans. The
Mhm.
connection, human connection, closeness, the simple things. And these simple things are most of the times invisible. So during isolation, I spent a lot of time with my nephews, like 4 and 6 years old, which I don't have children, so that was a new experience for me. We spent a lot of time with them, so just to have this relationship with these two kids in during isolation. I had a lot of like beautiful experience of just pure love or innocence or discovery or all everything that, to see how they connect to life, and to see myself reflected in these qualities, about relating to life with that purity and with that surprising attitude about everything that happens into life. So I write a lot of pieces inspired into these moments during isolation, but also I selected some jewels from the Great Latin American Songbook that have to do, or that resonate with this narrative. So I included, for instance, Gracias A La Vida from the great Violeta Parra from Chile. And Gracias A La Vida means thanks to life. So again, the same narrative about what makes us human, and deep gratitude about the simple things.
Gracias a la vida, que me ha dado tanto, me dio dos luceros que cuando los abro, perfecto distingo lo negro del blanco, y en el alto cielo su fondo estrellado.
Or Alfonsina y el Mar, which is a song from Chile, honoring the great poet Alfonsina Storni, and it's a story of her fading into the waters. She disappeared into the waters. So it's also a story about impermanence, which is something that we really felt during the pandemic, like impermanence, and the power of sinking into impermanence, because that sink you and into the present moment. And so it's a beautiful, there are beautiful narratives, and very, very human, like touching our humanity. And and the idea was to, it's since I started to collaborate with Brooklyn Writer, during the pandemic, one of the violin first from Brooklyn Writer, Colin Jacobson, and his brother, they founded this incredible orchestra from New York, the Knights, and they invited me to sing in their Christmas album 2 years ago. And it was a beautiful experience. Everybody recorded from isolation. And then I was like, the perfect continuation from my experience with Brooklyn Writer is to continue this exploration in the chambery thing. But the narrative was so grand, like our humanity, that I really wanted to explore it with an orchestra. So I invited the Knights to record with us, but I really wanted to see, I invited also my trio to find that conversation between a jazz trio, the chamber orchestra, and some guests. So we have Ingrid Jensen on trumpet in a couple of pieces. I invited the incredible, and I'm so lucky to have him, Dori Caymmi from Brazil, this incredible singer-songwriter that actually, carries the legacy of his father, Dorival Caymmi. And the arrangements, which are incredible, are again with some all-time collaborators that also work with me with Dreamers Project. With Brooklyn Writer are Jack Marelimbau from Brazil. We know him from his works with Caetano Veloso, Richie Sakamoto. He's an incredible, he really carries the legacy of the MPB, Antonio Carlos Jobim, all this tradition of Brazilian contemporary music. And Diego Esquisi from Argentina. He's incredible. He's amazing. And Gonzalo Grau, which also, that I think you know very well. Gonzalo, he's an incredible musician, incredible arranger, multi-instrumentalist. And he also co-produced during the recording the album with me. So it's a beautiful lineup. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Dardos y poemas que naufragan en mi bus, que se pierden las venas. Y un canto despierta en la memoria, soñamos por entre las piernas.
And you're going to be able to perform this music, which is really exciting, and I'm very much looking forward to. But it's also important to, well, and you're going to be able to perform it with the Knights, which is incredible.
Yes.
But it's important to mention that you will also be eventually touring this music with different there's the possibility of touring it with different configurations of bands. It doesn't have to be, you're not necessarily going to have a chamber orchestra everywhere you go.
Exactly.
But it also gives the opportunity for someone to hear this beautiful material in a more intimate setting, and feel really close to it. Like I got a chance to hear you perform it with an octet, which is the string quartet, and that was a more intimate setting, which was really lovely, and you really feel very close to it in that kind of a setting. At least I think so.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, yeah. So I guess the idea, as you well said, is because the way it was written, and how the project grew. I started to write for just for the quartet, and then for the octet, and then it grew up to the orchestra. So we have arrangements for these different settings. Just with my quartet, octet, which means the trio and a string quartet and myself, or we can be, guests, with orchestras. I travel with my trio, and we rehearse and share the music with with orchestras around the world. And actually, it's great because it creates also different ways to communicate, through the music in different settings, which is also very exciting. So yes, that's the fun part of it.
Yeah. Well, it's really nice. I'm excited to be able to hear these pieces in different configurations. I always feel like, as a music nerd who's not even a musician, but I'm still a music nerd, I love to be able to hear that, and like sort of be able to compare like the experiences of hearing something with full orchestra and then hearing something more intimate. So I'm really looking forward to being able to check out different versions.
Same here. I'm very excited about the album release on July 21st, at Bryant Park.
And the name of the album is
Aire. Aire, which means Aire means air, and the idea behind it. I mean, the first single is called Aire, but it also, it comes from the idea of, remember when we were talking about the breath, and how you the relationship with the breath as a singer, and which is air. But also during the pandemic, we were so afraid of people's breath, because that meant, COVID-19, and
yeah.
So it's really like an idea of just go with the flow, transformation, but also healing. So actually, one of the pieces that I recorded is a piece that I wrote for this incredible shaman, Mexican shaman, Maria Sabina, that she lived back in the 70s, I guess. And she's well known because she healed with herbs and peyote. and also with her voice. So actually, that's a very, very powerful piece. And so the power of the breath, the power of the voice to sing, to heal through it.
Mhm.
So it's almost like an invocation, to come together, and the power of healing each other through, coming together and through music and through the voice, and but together, everyone,
Mhm.
like a celebration of music. So so it's very exciting. But yeah, so what we were saying is it's very exciting to share Aire
Mhm.
on July 21st at the Bryant Park in New York, and it's going to be streamed, so that's great. And then we're going to tour with all these different lineups. That's exciting.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Well, I'm really thrilled about the new album and seeing everything that you have coming your way, because I know it's just gonna keep getting bigger and better.
Thank you so much, Marie. Thank you, and I hope you all enjoy the music.
I'm sure if they like it half as much as I do, everyone
Oh,
is gonna love it.
muchas gracias. Thank you
Really,
so
really
much.
beautiful.
Thank you.